Hey everyone, how's it going? Welcome back to the weekly watches video brought to you by DeepView. If you want more information about this charting platform, as well as screener, alerts, and soon to be much more, definitely go ahead and check out the link popping up right now, as well as go ahead and visit deepview.com. You can read through the reviews and learn more about DeepView right here, all the different categories and features. So with that, let's dive right into the video and start with a little bit of market analysis. First, looking at the NASDAQ 100 ETF, you can see we're basically consolidating right above this prior pivot. Things are looking pretty normal. I love how we pulled back into the 21 EMA, not too many distribution days in here, and nice upside reversal here on Friday. We are below the 5-day moving average, but we're above a rising 21, 50, and 200-day moving average. Moving on to the SPY, this looks pretty similar. However, we are below this prior pivot, so this is definitely a little bit weaker, but we're also above a rising 21, kind of flatlining 50 SMA, as well as a rising 200-day moving average. So nothing too out of the ordinary here. Moving on to the IWO, this is definitely the weakest, but I like how we've formed a potential base bottom here, consolidation bottom, and now we're kind of compressing here. All the moving averages are converging into one spot. And we've got kind of a clear pivot around 228.50 or so. You can see we kind of gapped above it, rejected on this day here. That would have been Tuesday, but we're holding up well within this range. I'd love to see us push higher on ideally an increase in volume. But overall, I like how these market ETFs are pretty much just consolidating as other stocks are breaking out and acting well. So that's a positive in my mind. And we'll have to see whether these can confirm higher, maybe after a few other key earnings reports. And that's another thing I do want to mention. Make sure you know all the dates for the earnings reports of any stock you're interested in. It's really important, and especially know the ones, if you do own the stock, definitely know when that EPS is due. So with that, let's run through a few key names here, the big cap name stocks. You can see Apple in a really nice trend, above a rising 2150 and 200 SMA. Nothing much to say here, just kind of moving up the right-hand side of this longer-term consolidation. And you can see it kind of broke out here and now is trending above those MAs. Google, a little bit weaker, but we're back above that 200 SMA. We're above a rising 21 EMA, which was support in this area, as well as recently last week. And I'd love to see us push higher through 108.97 on volume and kind of restart a potential stage 2 uptrend. Next up, we've got Meta, which has been maybe the strongest of the bunch. Even after this large gap down, you can see it pushed through the HVZ here, gapped up, formed a little bit of consolidation, pushed higher above the 50 SMA, and has been trending really nicely above that 21 EMA and 50 SMA for now a few months. And we had an EPS gap up, pull back, another consolidation, and now we're just trending above the 21 EMA. A nice oops reversal, potential respect for the 21 EMA. Obviously, it has to confirm next week, but so far in a really nice trend. Moving on to Microsoft, you can see again, nice respect for that 21 EMA, and this is definitely a little bit weaker, but we're pushing higher. We broke through this potential resistance point, and we'll have to see whether this can rally and confirm higher through these highs. Nvidia, this has been one of the leaders in the semi space. It has been consolidating for the past month or so, along with many of the other names in this group, but it's acting well versus this 21 EMA and nice action on Friday. We'll have to see whether it can push higher through this consolidation. And it is getting a little bit stretched, so I actually wouldn't mind for a longer term base consolidation, maybe let that 50 SMA catch up to price. But this has been a very strong stock and definitely a name to still have on your watch list. Moving on to Tesla, this is maybe the weakest of these bigger cap names. It's still in a stage 4 downtrend, still below a declining 200-day moving average, and we had an earnings report gap down here. We'll have to see where this can hold, but I am watching this key level to see if it's potentially an undercut rally, but still has a lot of work to do. We're below all the moving averages, and I'd love to see us fill this gap, maybe have an island reversal and push higher quickly within the space, and then maybe set up a pop through that 200 SMA on a breakout. But right now, definitely acting weak, and yeah, just something to have an eye on and to keep on your watch list as a sense of what is the risk appetite of institutions, and we'll have to see what happens with this name. They didn't put out the best earnings. I think operating margins declined somewhat, but estimates are still strong for revenue growth. Moving on now to my weekly watch list. Let's bring up those charts. First up, we've got ALGN. Nice push off lows forming out a base. You've got a little bit of a contraction in the past 2 days here, acting really nicely above the moving averages. And I'm watching for a push through higher on volume. BMEA, this is a biotech. I'm either watching for a push through HVC or a short-term pullback into the MAs or prior range. And this is, a biotech, so keep that in mind. And it's been, going up for about 5 straight days. So I wouldn't mind, an inside day right below this pivot, and that would set up really nicely for a push through this HVC area, as well as the kind of 30 spot, which is already pushed through, but I wouldn't mind an inside day below that, and then a burst through that key level. Duolingo, a little bit of a compression here on the right-hand side. I'm watching for a push through this prior pivot. I liked how it acted versus the 21 EMA. Nice respect for that area, as well as this prior key resistance point. DXCM already near the top of its base, so I wouldn't mind a few days more consolidation, let that 21 EMA catch up to lows a little bit, and then a push higher and reconfirmation higher on volume. Really nice estimates going out. You can see here, down here at the bottom, and you can hover and take a look at those more closely in deep view. FNV, I've got this on my list to kind of keep an eye on. The gold stocks, a nice pullback into the 21 EMA area, as well as the confluence of this prior kind of key resistance point. So we'll see if we can, follow up on the strength on Friday and kind of rally through this downward trend line. FSLY, moving off the bottom, showing a lot of price and volume momentum, and now forming a little bit of a range here. You can see it was rejected on Thursday, but I'm watching for a breakout through this pivot and a breakout through the top of this prior consolidation, which it was rejected down from on these 2 days, but we'll have to see if the third time is the charm. Moving on to IoT, this already pushed higher, and this was probably the best entry point, this gap and go, but it's consolidating a little bit for 4 straight days right at the top of this prior base consolidation. I wouldn't mind one more inside day and then a push through here, reconfirming the breakout. Definitely one of the strongest names. I like its overall shape, moving out the right hand side, and this is a recent IPO. Really nice estimates going out the next few quarters as well. So that is IoT. Moving on, we've got ISRG, a more mature name, and we had a nice EPS breakout and tight consolidation the past 2 days. And going over to a 65-minute time frame, you can see really nice, clean, organized action. I'm watching for a push through that kind of 301 level here on the intraday chart. Definitely a more mature name, so it might not run as fast. This EPS gap was only about 10%, but still really nice estimates, really nice growth. And this is great for those who kind of like a slower mover to have in their portfolio to kind of balance out the more fast recent IPOs and the ones with higher beta. So definitely a name to have on your list. Moving on, we've got ONON. This already pushed through this prior pivot. I'm watching for a low relative volume pullback or maybe an inside day, an up setup here right near the top of this consolidation. I love this push higher on volume after its earnings report. SCYX is more speculative. There's more just a play on the chart. Huge price and volume action pushing higher through this key resistance level. And now we're consolidating really nicely, pulling back on relative volume. Whether this kind of works or not, this is exactly what I look for in terms of potential stage 2 breakout and then retest of that pivot. Huge breakout on volume and then a slight consolidation drift lower on lower relative volume. This is textbook action, and we'll have to see whether they can push this pivot and actually start a trend up the right-hand side. This is definitely a more speculative play as it's a biotech and, also very low priced as well. So just really have this on to watch, but I'm sure some people like these type of setups who is watching this video. Moving on, we've got Spotify, which has EPS. You can see here on the 25th. And in DFU, a really handy feature is whenever a stock is reporting earnings, very soon or relatively soon, we set flags here, red if it's pretty soon, and gray if it's a little further out. But it's really helpful when you're going through lists and seeing what might be actionable, that you get that reminder that you always want to double check, of course, by visiting the company's website. But it's really nice to have this indication of earnings coming up. So Spotify compressing nicely into the 21 EMA, a nice push off lows on volume, and we'll have to see whether we get maybe an earnings gap with this one or just a breakout of the consolidation beforehand. That gives us enough cushion that we can maybe hold a little bit into earnings. MBLY, a little bit choppier. This is a recent IPO, and really its nature is to trade pretty choppy, but it is a potential stair stepper. and I'm watching for a push higher through this key pivot point, which you can see it failed earlier last week, but it's holding that 21 EMA and decent upside reversal action on this day as well as this day. Lastly, similar to SCYX, a pretty speculative play that's just kind of, based on the chart, but really nice action from, I believe, also a biotech. Yeah, this is pharmaceutical company. You can see, the industry groups I'm focused on here, and really nice compression, really tight action here on the right-hand side. And we'll have to see whether this can burst through. Definitely a name you'd want to take profit on very quickly, and make sure that you get out with a positive end result if it does move pretty fast. So that's a quick run through of my weekly watch list for this week. Let me know your thoughts on any of these names or the market down below in the comment section. I love to read through what you guys are thinking and watching. So thanks so much for taking the time to watch this video. Leave a like down below if you did enjoy. Subscribe if you're new to the channel, and I'll see you guys in future videos. Take care.